This week I'm reviewing the new BMW F850 GS. Whenever a BMW GS is mentioned, people automatically think of the good old 1200 GS that's been around for years now. It's viewed as probably the best big adventure bike out there and is massively popular. They have had a mid-sized GS in various 700 to 850 versions before, but these have never sold as well as the 1200s. So will this new 2018 850 GS be able to change this? My first impression when I went to collect the 850 is that it looked a lot bigger in the flesh than the photos. When I sat on it, it was also higher than I expected. It was noticeably higher than my V-Strom 650. I'm 6 foot tall and was only just flat-footed when sat on the bike. The 850 GS is off-road focused though, so as well as the large and really skinny 21-inch front wheel, it's got longer suspension. It's got more ground clearance than the more road-focused 750. Once you are sat on the bike though, it's a really nice place to be. The particular bike I rode had quite a few options though. It had the upgraded large TFT colour screen, a quick shifter and a comfort option pack. So that includes things like heated grips, keyless ignition and tyre pressure monitors. In the looks department, I've mentioned it in my reviews before that in general adventure bikes split opinion. People either love them or hate them. If you do like them, then I think you'll really like the GS. As with all the GS models, it has a non-symmetrical headlight though, which again splits opinion even further. Overall, I personally think it's a really nice looking bike. Things like the gold forks, the spoked wheels, various bits of protection around the bike, and a small, without being ridiculous, front beak make it look like it really means business too. As I mentioned before, it appears to be a bigger bike than it actually is. Once you're on it, then the seating position is really comfortable. You sit quite low with the tank being quite high. The seat itself is fairly well padded and proved to be really comfortable over a full day's riding too. The mirrors work well too. At first I thought they were a strange shape, but visibility was really good through them and they worked well. One thing that was a surprise to me was how low the front headlight and screen were. It worked in creating clean air, but this comes at you rather than over you. And at the end of a day's riding, I had loads of dead flies on the helmet, which doesn't usually happen when I've been out on my V-Strom. So this does back up my thoughts about the lack of wind and weather protection. It wasn't an issue on the sunny day, but I think I'd be looking for a larger aftermarket screen for any all-weather touring. When it comes to the switch gear and accessories, then this bike's packed with technology. Everything works really well and as expected. It's really high quality too. The colour TFT screen was lovely to use, and even though you can dive into loads of menus, it's still pretty easy to use. The bike also has different rider modes, and these can be changed quickly while riding along by just pulling the clutch and hitting a dedicated mode button, so there's no need to go into that TFT screen and try and do lots of complicated menu changes just to change mode. Everything on this bike is just really well built and is good quality. The paint works good, buttons feel nice, everything is pretty much what you'd expect from a premium brand such as BMW. Now to the engine. In summary, it's brilliant. It felt much more powerful. It's 94 brake horsepower, but like I say, it felt more powerful than that and more powerful than I expected for what looks like a big bike. And it's really free revving and smooth. It sounded pretty good through the stock exhaust, but it was a bit quiet for my liking. This is probably a good thing for touring, but it would be interesting to hear the difference that the optional crop of it makes too. The clutch is light and smooth, and the gearbox light, precise and easy to use. As I mentioned earlier, this bike had the optional quick shifter and an auto blicker on downshifts. It's the first time I've used one of these myself, and I found it to be really easy to use, and it really was brilliant. When accelerating hard, the upshifts were stupidly quick, and it really did transform the whole riding experience for me. The suspension is the most comfortable and capable I've ever felt on a bike yet. The chunky and gold, which of course makes a difference, upside down forks, and the monoshock rear soaked up every bump yet still handled well. Even with that large 21-inch wheel, it still turned in quickly and felt nimble. When it comes to stopping, then I found the brakes to be excellent too. The rear brake was okay, but the front really was brilliant. It has Brembo brakes on the front, which aren't just powerful, but they're also nice and progressive too. So who do I think this bike suits? Anyone in the market for an adventure bike really, especially if you're looking to occasionally stray off the tarmac. I do think it would be worth looking at the more road-focused 750 GS if you've no intention of any off-road riding though. I'm not sure it would be a great first bike, as it may feel a bit big and intimidating. I don't think it would suit smaller riders either. The demo bike I used had actually been dropped by someone who wasn't used to the height, even though they had a heavier bike with a larger engine themselves. Now to the price. The 850 GS is £9,400, although this particular bike would be nearer £11,000 with all the options it had. It's not a cheap bike, but when compared with equivalent bikes, so things like the Tiger 800, from other mainstream manufacturers, it's about the same price and what you'd expect really. So to my usual positives and negatives. The three things I like best about this bike are: number one, the engine power and the way it's delivered. The bike was much quicker and smoother than I expected it to be. Number two, the suspension. It just worked brilliantly in all aspects. And number three, the quick shifter. Even though this is an option, it was still one of the things I enjoyed most about the bike. And any negatives? I think that the standard wind protection could be better, especially for an adventure bike. Its height could put people off and make it unsuitable for smaller or less confident riders. Although I thought the engine was great, it did occasionally feel a little lumpy at low revs. One thing that's a negative for BMW rather than anyone else is that I can't see why anyone would now buy a 1200 GS when this is so good. The only reasons I can see are the bragging rights of having a 1200cc and the top model, the better wind protection and the shaft drive. But if you compare the prices, a really well-spec'd 850, maybe around £12,000, but a really well-spec'd 1200 can be up to £20,000, and I really can't see there's an £8,000 difference, so it's a really difficult one to justify. So in summary, I think the 850 GS is a great all-rounder and all the adventure bike anyone really needs. I also think it'd be interesting to compare it to the 1200 GS and even the opposite end of the scale with BMW's new 310 GS. Finally, I'd like to say a huge thanks to the BMW dealer who let me have the 850 for the day. This is Barrie Robson Motorcycles in York. They've got loads of bikes in stock covering the whole BMW range, and they're super friendly, family run business too, so well worth a visit if you're in the sort of York area. If you've enjoyed this review, then please do like it, give it a thumbs up, and also let me have your comments. And if you want to see my new weekly videos, they're now coming out every Friday, please subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much and see you next week.